This is a Defocus Media production. What's up, everyone? It's your favorite optometrist, Dr. Daryl Glover.
And I'm Dr. Jennifer Lyerly, resident optometry nerd.
And welcome to Defocus Media, optometry's #1 podcast, where we discuss the hottest topics, latest technology, eyewear, practice management, and more. So sit back, relax, and defocus.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Defocus Media podcast. We have a very special live broadcast today. We are talking about love at first contact lens fit. We're going to be talking about contact lens dropout, contact lens comfort, and how to succeed at fitting our patients in contact lenses. And I have an incredible panel here with me today to go through those topics. My name is Harbir. Dr. Harbir Sayan. I am the host of the 2020 podcast, but I am really grateful to be moderating this conversation that we're partnering with Johnson & Johnson Vision for. And as I said, I have three wonderful guests. I have the one and only Dr. Kurt Moody, who is Director of North America Professional Education. And of course, we know Dr. Moody has an immense background in research and development in contact lens technology. I have Dr. Luis Rojas from Texas, who's been practicing since 2017. He's had lots of experience in various specialties and currently is practicing at De Novo Eye in McKinney. And I have Dr. Danielle Richardson from Los Angeles, practicing in her boutique private practice, Zach Eyes. And of course, everybody with lots of background in fitting contact lenses and going to help share lots of insight into how we can succeed in our practice in fitting contact lenses in our patients, and particularly keeping our first-time wearers in their lenses, hopefully forever, but definitely for longer than they have been. So why don't I start with, if you wouldn't mind, each of you give me, I know I've given a little bit of an intro, but each of you give me your own little introduction, if you wouldn't mind. And Dr. Moody, I will start with you, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So first of all, thrilled to be here. And again, I've got a good group of panelists here with me, but I practiced 22 years in Northeastern Pennsylvania, large OD, MD practice, joined J&J in 2005, spent 13 years in R&D, and now the past 2 years, I've been doing professional education. So just love the fact I get the ability to definitely work, hand in hand with our peers, and Dr. Richardson, Dr. Rojas are just great examples of some of the folks I get the opportunity to work with.
Thank you. And Dr. Rojas, how about yourself?
Yes, thanks for the introduction and thanks for having us. My name is Dr. Rojas. I actually graduated in 2015, so we've been practicing since 2015. We worked in every type of mode of practice, private practice, MD groups, LASIK centers, corporate, finally back at private practice, and we've opened up De Novo Eye. We've been open now for 2 years. And doing all broad scope, everything that we can get our hands on. And so we're really happy to finally get the office going, even through a pandemic. So here we are.
That's great. I said 2017. I was trying to make you younger, if that's okay with you. Dr. Richardson, a couple of words from yourself, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also a 2015 graduate, so been practicing for about six or so years now. Similar to Dr. Rojas, I've been in several different modes of practice. I began my career in New York City, working for corporate practices and private practices, later moved to Houston, and same thing, had different practice experience there, and finally landed in Los Angeles, where now I currently reside and practice. So we focus mostly on primary care, meaning general comprehensive eye exams, contact lens, lots of contact lens fits, and we do quite a bit of LASIK co-management. So that's kind of where our practice is, and we're located in West Hollywood.
All right. Thank you very much. So Dr. Rojas already alluded to it. Of course, the kind of the big backdrop here is that we're hopefully emerging from this pandemic, and everything that came with it, wearing masks and fogging glasses and all the other stuff. And for sure, I've seen in my practice that there's been a significant increase in interest in contact lenses from patients that perhaps previously weren't as interested. And I was wondering, first of all, that could be, kids, adults, seniors, on all of them, of course. And so there's many new contact lens wearers that we're dealing with that, we perhaps weren't seeing this high of a percentage before. So I'd love to hear your guys' perspective from the clinical perspective. How do you meet those new patients, and how do you make sure that they get the best first time wearing experience?
So I think one of the key things with a success of a first-time fit is really getting to a clear understanding of the patient's visual needs and their functional vision. So functional vision, not functional. Sorry, it's a long day. So what I mean by their functional vision is, what are you doing all day? How do you use your eyes for work? Are you one screen, dual monitors? Are you laptop, desktop? Are you up and down throughout the day? Or what are you doing on the weekends? Are you hiking? Do you read books on the Kindle? Do you sew on the weekend? So really getting a very strong understanding of, number one, when they intend to wear contact lenses, and number two, what their visual demands are. I think that sets you up for success for two reasons. Number one, you're able to correctly prescribe the first lens, right? That's one half of that successful fit. But also, the patient really feels heard. They really feel like you're taking their lifestyle into account. And I think the other half, right, there's the clinical part of contact lens fit, and then there's the psychological part where we got to do some hand holding, some massaging, all of that. So I think really getting super clear on the patient's visual needs and the frequency of intended contact lens use can really help to start things off on a really strong connected note for both patient and doctor, and get them to buy into the contact lens wear as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. If there's anything I can add, is you do get one shot, you get one opportunity. We all have those patients that when they were asked if the contact lenses were ever offered before, they would say, no, I wasn't a good candidate because they told me I had something called astigmatism. And only to find maybe 2 to 3/4 of cylinder. And now you're just given this second opportunity, a second shot of success with even higher expectations, right? So you need to have a contact lens that, that delivers that wow factor in both comfort and vision on your first shot. You've now just been given this wonderful opportunity. So you have to look at everything that Dr. Richardson was talking about. I mean, their habitual use of their eyes, what do they do for a living? Do they have limitations with how to put on contacts? Even anatomy, is it too hard, too difficult to put on a contact lens? Do we need extra training? Just a lot of expectations to navigate through in our first encounters.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
You've got one shot at this, right? We kind of jokingly have always said it's like you get one first kiss. You get one first date. So this is the same thing. With the idea, the first time wearing contacts only happens once. So we've got to make sure we do it right. One of the things I'd like to call out too, because you both mentioned, making sure you're really customizing that lens for their wants, for their needs, for their vision. But I think the other thing we've got to really be very cognizant of is the fact that we're communicating that really well with our patients. I mean, we all know, we're all docs, and we all know that there is not a generic contact lens. And I think the onus is on us to make sure we're letting that patient know, I'm taking all these aspects of you, your life, into consideration when I'm choosing that perfect lens for you.
That's absolutely really important. That's something that I don't think many patients know. In fact, there's a lot of information that patients don't know initially, and it's on us to educate the patient on that so they understand that they're getting the best experience and the best fit. And I'm curious if you guys could share some. It's all very valuable information and insights that you've shared here, getting to the bottom of what the patient really wants to get out of the contact lens so you can give them what they're hoping for. But is there anything else that you do that makes that initial experience, that first kiss, so to speak, with their contact lens, like memorable for them? Whether it's something that you do personally yourself or within the clinic, the way you fit a contact lens.
I'm gung-ho about going and grabbing a contact lens and saying, let's cut through the fear. Let's just go ahead and place it on your eye. And they're like, you're going to touch my eye? We're going to do that? And so it's a conversation starter. It kind of, they giggle a little bit. Sometimes they freak out. And then before you know it, it's on the eye. They're like, oh, it's not that bad. So it's a great icebreaker. So I sometimes do all the work initially and say, we'll train how to insert and remove later. Let me just break that ice and reduce those fears to allow us to continue moving forward.
Yep. I'll say actually that one has been a game changer for me. I think I've only been doing that for about a year. And it was really uncomfortable for me to get to the point where I'm saying, hey, let me just put that on your eye so you can really see what it feels like. Because for a lot of people, especially in multifocal, where, for example, it's hard for them to conceptualize what that's going to be like. And man, that's been a huge game changer for like the patients really feeling like I gave them something different that they've obviously never had before. But for the practice as a whole, our contact lens practice has been growing ever since I've just tried that one extra little step. So I think that's really, really a key takeaway.
I do it a little bit differently. So I have in the past historically inserted the eye first. I inserted the contact lens in the eye first. But what I do now is I'm in LA, so my patients are happy to come back. They actually really like coming back. It makes them feel like more connected with the doctor. So we actually, for almost all of those initial patients, we're going to bring them back at a time when it's not chaotic in the office, when it's more peaceful, and give them sort of that time and TLC and attention to do a more like old school style INR. And I've actually found a lot of success in that. Now, we do occasionally get those patients who can't insert or remove the lenses, but I've actually found that like eliminating doing it at the actual exam and kind of having a separate appointment at a more calm time has been really successful for our new patient wearers. So I've done it both ways. And I mean, if you don't have a patient population that wants to come back, you have to be cognizant of that. But building that rapport and kind of giving them a little bit of extra time, I've found has been a great introduction into the lens. They don't feel rushed. They don't feel hurried. They don't feel like they have to get it done today.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to some of the things you guys were talking about off the top, is kind of understanding your patient and what their needs are and who they are and what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
So, one of the big parts of our conversation here is new wearers tend to drop out of their contact lenses at an alarming rate, really. So studies have showed here, I'm just going to read off the slide here, but despite improvements in technology, research is showing an average of 21.7% of contact lens wearers drop out every year. New wearers drop out at a higher rate. With 2017 study shows new wearer dropout is 26%. A quarter of every new person who comes into contact lens is going to drop out. To me, that's incredible. So I'd love I know Dr. Rojas, you had some, this is something that you were excited to kind of go into detail about. I'm just going to hand it off to you on this one and let you run with it. But, of course, Dr. Moody and Dr. Richardson, I'd love for you to chime in whenever you can.
Thanks. Are we surprised? Maybe we shouldn't be so surprised. Our screen time has doubled, tripled. I mean, it depends on what study you look at, but the elephant in the room right now is screen time. We used to be so gung-ho about blink-activated contact lenses. Well, if we're not blinking, so much for that type of technology. But yeah, we've seen articles quoting 9, 10, and if you really look close, some even quote 17 hours of total screen time. And I'm talking iPads, cell phones, computers, TVs, everything. So I believe it was Vision Direct. They looked at 2,000 adults and they measured about 17 hours of total screen time. And this, by the way, is pre-COVID. So if you're looking at an average of that time in a year, that's about 6,259 hours in a year of screen time. Now, I know, and I'm going into the weeds right now, but let's assume that there's a 60-year lifespan. That's a little number crunching here. That's 44 years of screen time. And given the fact that we're asleep 1/3 of our life, or we're sleeping through 1/3, the rest of the time that we're awake, that's 44 years out of 60 years screen time. So after COVID, by the way, that number changed to about 19 in some studies. So 19 hours, right? And then I started looking at my own metrics on my phone. I'm like, oh, I'm part of the problem. So so as we know, blinking increases with dopamine levels. Diseases like Parkinson's, that's actually reduced, with blink rate being anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes, 12 to 15, blinks per minute, depending on studies. Now we're looking at what is everyone quoting now, 4 to 6 blinks per minute when you're on a screen or doing a specific visual task. So we know that blink increases with conversation, and some of the odd things that we looked at is memorization, mathematical processing, emotional excitement, anxiety, frustration, and fatigue. All those increase your blinking. And I thought I just wanted to share this because I thought it was very interesting. But as we know, there's exogenous factors, endogenous factors, but females taking birth control blink 32% more. And we know that our dry eye population is mainly female. So you look at all the factors of hormones and medication and makeup, and it's a big issue, especially because we're pushing the boundaries with our eyes.
We're really setting up the perfect storm, right? So we've got a tear film that's probably about 10 microns, if we're lucky, and we're trying to sandwich in a 100 micron contact lens in there, And like you said, you're in front of a computer screen, a digital device that's causing your eyes to blink less. And you're probably in a pretty controlled environment. There's not many of us that live in 100% humidity. I'm in Jacksonville. Sometimes we get close to it outside, but guess what? I'm inside most of the time, air conditioning.
Yeah.
So we are setting up that perfect storm. So I think that's why we have to be pretty selective in the material and the modality that we're putting our patients in.
Right. Yeah. And then starting off with the contact lens, like the Oasis Hydrolux, I mean, that has that PVP wetting agent already embedded into the matrix. You're not relying on your eyelids squeezing some moisture out. So it's an inherent material comfort that you have to retain moisture, and even with reduced blinking, so you can rely on that moisture content.
We do have some hot news off the press. So, we did a study with 1 day Oasis, and we selectively looked at patients who were on digital devices 8 hours or more. Guess what? It was probably the easiest cohort to find, right? And we found that 1 day Oasis outperformed any of the other lenses that were in that study in regards to comfort. And the other thing that was really interesting was in regards to vision, because we know that there's that tie-in, of comfort and vision, right?
Well, that's actually a great segue and really, really important, to talk about a study with the lens on eye, right? Because I know there's studies in kind of in vitro, is that the right term? Where you're kind of more in a petri dish, right? And you say, well, it retained its moisture, but what does it do on the eyeball is maybe the more important piece of information. And the next thing I was going to, ask you about was, one of the three most common reasons that we know that patients drop out are poor vision, discomfort, and then a lack of motivation. But the poor vision and discomfort are those two things that you had just addressed, Dr. Moody. So how is it that those factors are addressed in a 1 day moist, or in a Oasis 1 day, or other types of lens technology?
So if we kind of look at the technology that we've got in the lenses, I would probably attribute it to a number of factors. One is that tapered edge that we have. We call it an invisible edge. We blink, as we've been mentioning, 12, 14,000 times per day. And that edge is going to bump up to that really sensitive upper and lower lid margin, 12 to 14,000 times. So the tapered edge has been proven time and time again to be the most comfortable edge. We've got, measurements of what we call coefficient of friction, how lubricious, how slippery that lens surface is. And, and the way we end up measuring it is we actually use the world's authority on coefficient of friction, and they're measuring it in an eye-friendly environment. So it's not an artificial environment. And that Oasis material is the lowest coefficient of friction, not only when you open it up out of the package, but throughout the course of the day, I think, which is super, super important. And then, the last part I'd probably call on, Dr. Richardson and Dr. Rojas to maybe comment on a little bit. It's really how we have to be so particular that we're correcting for all the different vision aspects, right? Astigmatism, multifocal. So, if I'm sure both of you are seeing that in your practice, that those people who are most satisfied are the ones that you do the best job optically.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, just from clinical experience or whatever, sometimes I think we can kind of we have like our lens that we think of when a patient is a new wearer that we always go to, but really taking a second to step back and think about, again, how is this person going to use it? I know sometimes when I talk to doctors, like in the field, they will tell me that the reason they don't maybe reach for Acuvue Oasis 1 day is price, or they don't want to, have that sticker shock with the patient. Well, if that patient's only wearing contact lenses once a week, a couple times a month, price is non-negotiable. And if that's going to be the most comfortable lens, you should put them in that. So I think not being afraid to put your new wearers in a premium product is important, because 9 times out of 10, especially in this day and age where we spend all day on screens, a person's not going to be wearing contact lenses full time anyway. So because of that, putting them in a premium product. So Acuvue Oasis 1 day, not with the Hydrolux, not only do we have spherical, we have toric fit, right? And that toric fit is going to fit better than some of the other daily torics because of the blink stabilized design. I always kind of explain it to patients, instead of there being a weight on the top and the bottom, we have 2 weights on either side, like a stool. So I always go like this, it's going to tolerate head tilt a little better. And the patient say, oh, okay, wow. But I think sometimes those are the small things, right? That poor vision, if that lens is swimming around on the eye, if it's not fitting, if you're uncorrecting astigmatism, those are all things that are going to make the vision in glasses clearer than the vision in contacts. And when there is that disparate clarity, I think that's when patients kind of drop out of contacts because it's not as clear as their glasses. So don't be afraid to reach for the best product possible, because your patients will appreciate that and you actually will get better outcomes as well.
Yeah, Dr. Rojas, anything to add there?
Sorry, you cut off just for a second.
Anything to add to what Dr. Richardson said?
I agree with everybody in terms of correcting toricity. I think some of us are sometimes we play the easy game of, well, it's 2 quarters. Let me round down. Let me take the spherical equivalent. I'm completely against that. You got 2 quarters, I'm bumping you up. I'm rounding upward. And I think just when you're right, Dr. Richardson, when you get that vision comparable to an apple-to-apple comparison to the glasses, then it is an equal, like, oh, I like to wear my contacts as much as I like to wear my glasses, right? So I guess the only time I'm kind of strategic to undercorrect or maybe round down my pre-presbyopes, because the more you correct the astigmatism, the more they feel it. However, that's a good segue to talk to them about multifocals right off the bat. I've noticed 36-year-olds, that's been one of my youngest population groups, the 36 and 37-year-old tech heavy tech patients that get put into a multifocal early on, whether it's some kind of just accommodation spasm or deficiency, but it ends up working big time. And those baby steps, when you start at 36, 37, we read in our textbooks, 42, presbyopia 43, maybe 45. No, forget that. Once you give them the comfort of the up close vision with the multifocal, that helps. So yeah, tailoring your contact lens selection for each candidate is paramount.
Absolutely. And actually something, Dr. Richardson, that you said in your answer there, I think is really important. You know, we do have a tendency to, or I'll speak for myself because I know this is 100% true a few years ago for me, kind of a bias where I'm like, well, you're new to lenses. Maybe I'll put you in something that's a little more affordable. But we know that that's going to tend to be a lower quality product. And that's probably contributing to these dropout rates, right? Is I'm putting you in an inferior product and you're not going to like it. So you're not going to stay in it. Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we just put you in what the best product is? And for sure, there's been very little resistance that I've seen in our practice, since we've just kind of gotten comfortable with explaining to patients, this is the best product for this reason. Here you go. Let's leave it at that versus if you don't like the price, then I'll figure something else out for you,
Yeah, I think we kind of come from the school of thought of like, you put a person in contact lens where from a business perspective, you want to get that annual sale, that annual supply sale. And that's kind of how things go. But we have to, again, kind of throw all of that out the window and look at the world we live in now. So typically what I recommend for patients is that they buy 190 pack per eye. That's going to let them wear contacts 2 times a week for 45 weeks. There's 52 weeks in the year, right? So when we kind of break it down like that, I'm like, if you want more, you can buy more, but you don't want to get less because then patients get conservative. And so when you look at this, 2 boxes, that's it. Whether you have insurance or you're paying out of pocket, it feels doable to the patients. We have 0 resistance and we're able to make Acuvue Oasis one day actually our #1 contact lens. So I think sometimes we just kind of get focused on that annual supply sale from a business revenue perspective, and then also prejudging the patient's spending. And so I get it from a business sense, but I would invite you instead to think about doing what's best for the patient and realizing that out-of-pocket cost is going to be sub $300. So most of the patients are willing to invest, even if they have to pay out of pocket, in that price point for clear, comfortable vision.
Absolutely. So we've touched on some of this already, but I'd love to hear from your perspectives and what can we do as practitioners to make sure we're beating those averages, right? That we have lower dropout rates than those studies are showing. We talked about the importance of taking a good history and really understanding our patients, but I'd love for you to go kind of step by step through what you might do in your office and other ways that we can make sure that we're succeeding.
Absolutely. I guess I can take this one on. Yeah, you guys mentioned the history component of it. Medications. I'm big on reviewing medications. We're such a high ocular surface, dry eye practice that we need that tear film going back to the basics. We need that to be clear before we even start talking about the high success rate on the contact lens. I want the eyeball to be in a good shape to begin with. Yeah, and again, doing the testing in the light. I know some doctors prefer to turn off the lights and refract in the dark, and that's not the environment we live in. So yeah, turn on those lights, refract in the light, maybe get a new projector or maybe a monitor. But yeah, scotopic refraction should be avoided. That's just my opinion. The high prescriptions are more sensitive to binocular imbalances. So these higher myopes can take sometimes less prescription binocularly than testing, in each eye. And I've noticed that from time to time. We're like, well, that might be out of the range, but sure enough, both eyes, you can actually get a little bit less prescription. And I'll probably mention a couple more, but like sensory dominance, when we're looking at maybe for perhaps multifocals, how simple it is with manual phoropters now to get the ret lens in and do a sensory dominance test instead of a sight dominance. We haven't automated phoropters, so we don't have that easy flip of a dial, but we have a button. So it's just as easy as doing that. And so once we start looking at all the factors, corneal assessment, the vital dyes, if you treat the ocular surface and you have a good foundation for your fit, success is going to be really high on that contact lens.
I mean, I think my approach is really focused on patient education. I always say the best offense is a good defense. And the more information I give the patient, the less they're looking it up online or getting info from friends or that sort of thing. So to something Dr. Moody said earlier in the conversation, really educating about the lenses themselves, right? So this has blink stabilized technology for our multifocal products, right? This is pupil optimized design. This is what this means. There's UV protection. This is what that means. And so really going into the actual characteristics of the lens and educating the patients, I find is one way that I help to set the patients up for success. Additionally, I always let patients know that the process is like Goldilocks, right? Too hot, too cold, too this, too that. So we can see each other as many times and try as many lenses as we need to until we get one that's just right. So I think really managing patient expectations and allowing them to feel comfortable and to know that just because we start here does not mean we have to end here. It lets, you can kind of visibly see, like a lot of times patients' shoulders will relax or they seem more relaxed in the office. So don't forget the human component, that patients may be nervous or anxious or a little bit worried about the contact lens process in and of itself. And that can contribute to dropout psychologically. So just educating the patients and making sure they understand how the contact lens fitting process works. Like, I give you these lenses, you try them, you come back. Because again, these patients, your new wearers, they don't know any of this. They don't know how that goes. So really educating a lot about the entire experience and the characteristics of the lens can really get your patients on board and they leave feeling empowered with knowledge as opposed to maybe feeling unsure, or if things feel a little weird, they feel like, do I just have to accept this? I think sometimes as clinicians, we might want to just lean more to the overshare as opposed to the undershare.
And isn't it great when we make them happy?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you this story. I had a patient today. So every once in a while I see patients. And it was a mid-myo. It was minus 450 one eye, 475 in the other. He was in his later 40s. And I fit him with a multifocal for the first time. So he had been just wearing distance contact lenses with readers. And, first pair of lenses put on Oasis 2-week multifocal. He looked at his phone and his face lit up. He goes, I can't believe I could see my phone. He said, I feel like 10 years younger. So, I mean, it gives you that warmth, doesn't it? When you get that instant gratification. I think that's what's so great about our profession.
Absolutely agree. Those success stories really do give you those warm and fuzzies and make you feel good about what you do, even though, hopefully you're getting those pretty frequently. But for me, they definitely don't lose their shine. Every time I get a patient who's happy with their contact lens fit, it makes me feel good and it encourages you to keep doing it, right, and get better at it for sure. I think that's excellent feedback, guys. I appreciate that. And I think the thing you were saying, Danielle, about educating your patient, we live in this age where we're like inundated with information, or we can find information at any point in any time. So if I don't share that information with my patient and they go find it online, I feel like I did not succeed in that interaction with them, because I don't want them finding information from anywhere else other than me, because otherwise I feel like it's going to make me look like less of a clinician or practitioner, if I haven't shared all the appropriate information with them. I know there's going to be a lot of other stuff on Google that they'll find, as long as, we don't need to talk about what might happen if the contact lens gets lost in the back of their eye or whatever. Then Google will tell you all these things. But the other thing that you said, the human component, right? We're fitting lenses on eyeballs that are attached to human beings. We have to look at the whole person. Super, super important. Any other last sort of clinical pearls that you guys would like to share? Anything we haven't touched on yet?
I'm actually pretty big on technology in terms of the exam room process and the workup and using as many photos. We're so visual, and of course we're in a visual field. So I take a lot of anterior segment photography, and I have a big monitor in the exam room, and so I pull it up and I show them every detail. So if they're washing their hands right before they put their contacts on, I'm talking about UV protection. I'm talking about the edge design. I'm talking about how the thickness of the contact lens was made for that same thickness to make it easier to put it on your eye. And they're like, oh yeah, I just noticed that this is so much easier to handle than my previous lenses. So I talk out loud when I'm doing a slit lamp exam as well, and I'm saying, hey, I'm looking at the edge design. I'm looking at how it moves with your blink. I just noticed that one little tick mark, which is, and I voice it as a weight. I'm like, oh, I noticed that this little weight is in position, so you should have locked in vision for your astigmatism. They're like, what? That's supposed to rotate on my eye? And so we go into the details. So you're right, Dr. Richardson. I mean, I'm big on education, so that's true. If there's anybody out there that's wondering if they can get an anterior segment camera, if it's even worth for their practice, I think the educational component of the front of the eye, people love seeing their iris, people love seeing their cornea. I think that's a big practice builder.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
We actually were just testing out a slit lamp with a camera, video, and photo, and man, I loved it. Amazing. We're definitely going to bring that in. It was a great experience for the patient. Also, like you said, to see their own eye versus just static generic images. It definitely elevates the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked. We've touched on, of course, various J&J products throughout the conversation, but we've been trying to speak, in general about contact lens fitting and the success for new wearers. But I'd love to be more specific now. If you guys could tell me a little bit about J&J and your experience with Johnson & Johnson Vision. I know, Dr. Rojas, for sure you have some things that you'd like to share about what happens kind of behind the scenes and what makes you want to work with this company. So I'd love for you to both share that with me, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm big on, I've always been a huge proponent of partnering and aligning myself with companies who share similar core values. Aside from J&J, having amazing products and R&D and customer care, you name it, it really came down to their continued support for our profession as a whole, and embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And just in fact, a couple of months ago, J&J had a virtual Hispanic Heritage Month discussion panel where I was able to share my own personal background growing up in a Hispanic community, my professional accomplishments, and how now I'm giving back to the same community as an eye care provider. So the fact that a company like J&J, welcomes an open forum such as this to understand these cultural differences and provide us with resources, to meet the needs of the community is enough, at least for me, to make it an easy choice. I mean, from a financial perspective, we're all trying to grow our offices, and there's always, companies that you can align yourself with, but it goes back to that core value. And if it aligns, that's a long-term relationship. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, similar to Dr. Rojas, I think what makes J&J, in my opinion, a company that I would like to align myself with is the larger commitment, not only to the profession, but truly to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think, there's been so many companies, in 2020 who had a lot of energy and a lot of things they were thinking about doing, and not maybe so much implementation here in 2022. So, I mean, Johnson & Johnson Vision has partnered with Black Eye Care Perspective to become a part of the 13% Promise and to really help to increase recruitment and retention of Black students into the profession of optometry. So we, Johnson & Johnson takes into account, different marginalized groups. And I think that is maybe not something that is an industry standard across the board. So I think that's a really key point of differentiation. Another thing I love personally about working with Johnson & Johnson is the portfolio. I love that I have everything I need in one portfolio, start to finish. I have a monthly, I have a daily disposable, a standard. I always kind of tier it to patients. These are standard, these are premium. I have toric, that's going to be an optimal fit to those patients. One eye spherical, one eye toric. They want to be in a daily. What do we do, right? I have something for that. The multifocal, the absolute best multifocal, the best fit, that first time fit. We know when you use the J&J fitting calculator on jnjvisionpro.com, you can get a successful fit 97% of the time in 2 visits or less with using the fitting calculator. So the fact that you have this lens that's going to wow patients, you have a calculator you can use. For me, that portfolio is important because say you're in moist, we can upgrade you to Oasis one day. Say you like Oasis one day, maybe it's expensive, you want to wear contacts more, we got Oasis 2 week. We have enough in the portfolio that that daily, 2 week and monthly modality that allows any combination of contact lens wear to happen. So for me, being able to kind of know that I have superior optics, superior products, right? We have studies to show comfort and wettability, lubricity, all of these different factors. But I can offer these products and I can offer contact lenses that have the most UV protection, right? So being in sunny Southern California, for whatever reason, a lot of people don't like to wear sunglasses. It's so bizarre to me. It's like, how can you not, look at the light right now. Like, how could you not want to wear sunglasses? Whatever the reason is, people don't like to wear sunglasses. So to be able to say, hey, look, I would prefer you wear sunglasses, but this is the lens we can put you in to at least, help protect you from UV exposure. So I think number one, it's the J. Johnson & Johnson commitment to really delivering what they say, right? Like when they partner with Black Eye Care Perspective, I've been involved in a lot of events myself personally. And then secondly, it's that portfolio, knowing that I have every type of contact lens I could possibly need and want within one portfolio makes it really easy for me to prescribe that to my patient.
Well,
thank you both for the kind words. So I've always been proud to work for this company, but the proudest moments are when you hear some words from the two of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, likewise.
Yeah, that's incredible. Obviously, a company needs to deliver on what their actual product is, and as you're speaking on behalf of J&J here, their portfolio does that. But on, behind the scenes, everything you've just described sounds incredible. And you're right, especially in 2020, but there's a lot of companies that will do things more just kind of for show, right? But it's clear that J&J here is putting a lot of important things in place to support various communities in the long term. So that's really amazing to see that. Really fantastic. I'm going to leave it open one more time to you guys. Any final messages that you guys would like to share? Dr. Moody, Dr. Rojas, Dr. Richardson, please feel free.
So I would say, coming back to kind of our initial, the theme, like love at first contact lens, right? So I think if I could give any advice to anyone listening or clinicians, number one, be confident in your selection of the first lens. Don't allow yourself to, thoughts about, can the patient afford this or that? Be confident, select the best lens for that patient, whether it's a toric lens, a spherical lens, or a multifocal lens. Communicate why that is the best lens for the patient. So really educating on the front end, and then help to set clear expectations, right? What is our goal? Is our goal to get you in contact lenses on the weekends? Is our goal to get you in a multifocal because you're, maybe middle-aged and dating and you don't want to wear reading glasses? Are you a golfer and you really want a clear distance vision, but you want to have lunch at the club afterwards, right? So really understanding what the person's visual needs are and selecting a contact lens that you feel confident in, communicate the benefits of the lens, and then also communicate how to utilize that within their lifestyle. I think that's a really great way to set yourself up for success. Additionally, use the tools that are available to you. So on jnjvisionpro.com, there's a multifocal fitting calculator that'll help you fit AccuView One Day Moist multifocal and AccuView Oasis multifocal. So look on those sites, utilize the calculators that are available to you, and just be confident in that first selection. And also encourage the patient to know that this is not it, right? So it does not all have to be done today, and give the patient an out, help them feel comfortable, make that first visit one where they are looking forward to coming back. And you've given them enough information that if they have any issues, if anything comes up, if it feels a little weird, they know that you've got their back and you'll be seeing them in a week or so to discuss any issues. So I would say those are kind of my clinical pearls that I would give you to set things up for success. Just remember, a good offense is great defense. So you be the expert, you give them everything you need, and your patients will be wowed with that first lens.
Love it. Oh, that's great. If there's anything I can add, I'm big on education as well. So, get those cameras, start taking pictures of the surface of the eye, talk about dryness, get them involved in their own care. You take care of the eye, you take care of the patient. It'll make the contact lens selection a lot easier. And yeah, don't go to the cheaper products. Just don't make that assumption, go for the premium products, wow them for the first time. If it is a price conversation, if you drop 1 out of 10, you wowed 9. So don't be afraid to go ahead and just go for premium lenses right off the bat. So thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it.
Things I would add here too would just, so I love the fact about the proactive fitting. Make sure we're fitting the torics. Use that one-day AccuView Oasis toric. But also, proactively fitting those multifocals. I love the fact you talked a little bit about addressing those people prior to that magic age that we always think it's 40, and we know
right.
that it's not. And I think my final little tidbit here would be also consider using our lens assist. For those of you that aren't aware, we've got a great little product there to help those new patients. So, we call it Lens Assist. You could find it on our website, but it's definitely a service there for those patients who are new to contact lenses. So it's almost that virtual assistant, that helper that they have when they go home. And our hope is that they're going to end up staying in contact lenses, because we know that dropout rate is so high amongst those new folks when they go home. They just can't seem to get the lens in. So Lens Assist is definitely our product that's there, free to your patients, so that we can keep patients in contact lenses longer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's nice to have that support at home. That's a pretty rare thing for patients. That's amazing. Wow. Incredible amounts of insight here, guys. I'm pumped after this last little pep talk you guys just gave me to get back, and I'm off this week, but when I get back to clinic next week, I'm going to be like fitting contacts on everyone. But thank you again, Dr. Moody, Dr. Rojas, Dr. Richardson. Thank you to Johnson & Johnson Vision for partnering and sponsoring this episode. I hope everybody who watched and listened really took some amazing things away from this. Make sure you reach out. If you have any questions, any comments, we're always happy to talk and learn more from everyone. But thanks again, and have a great night.
Thank you all.
All right, colleagues, and it's a wrap. Thank you dearly for hanging out with the Defocus Media team. We hope truly something resonated with you. And if it did, be sure to give us 5 stars. And make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you named it. And our handle is at Defocus Media on all platforms. And until next time, be sure to keep it 2020. And we look forward to seeing